When Prince Harry received a midnight call from an insider at Kensington Palace, he never expected to hear the words that would leave him breathless. "William's just declared George will inherit the Wales title, not you." What followed was not just heartbreak, but a tidal wave of betrayal and royal retribution. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The call came at 12:03 a.m., unexpected, jarring, cutting through the stillness of Montecito's quiet hills. Harry had just put down a well-worn copy of one of Diana's old speeches, something he often returned to when the noise of the world grew too loud. The voice on the other end was cautious, but urgent, an aide he once trusted implicitly, whispering details he never imagined he'd hear. "It's official," the aide said. "William has declared the title of Prince of Wales will pass exclusively to George. No deviation, no consultation. It's been made clear." For a moment, Harry couldn't speak. He simply stared into the dark, mouth slightly open, unable to grasp the full weight of what he had just heard. The word exclusively echoed like a drumbeat in his ears. Not ceremonially shared, not held in trust, not a future negotiation, but a final declaration. A royal wall had just been drawn, and Harry had been quietly pushed behind it. For years, the title had symbolized more than duty. It was legacy. It was the piece of his mother that still breathed within the institution. To hear it would skip him entirely was more than political, it was personal. Meghan, sensing his shift, entered the room with steady composure. When Harry told her, her breath caught for a moment, but she remained calm, urging him to not react impulsively. "Let's think," she said softly. "Let's find the why." But Harry knew the why didn't matter as much as the how. There had been no warning, no call, no attempt to prepare him. Not even a whisper from Charles, who had once told him over brandy by the fire that both sons would shape the monarchy's next chapter. And now, that chapter had been written without him. He remembered the days after Diana's funeral, how she made them promise to stand by each other, how she once said, "Titles mean nothing if love is lost between brothers." Her words haunted him now, almost mockingly. He had taken that vow to heart. Had William? Even more painful was the realization that others had known courtiers, advisors, press aides, and yet none had reached out. The silence was deafening. Not even a symbolic gesture from the palace to ease the blow. Not a word from his father. Harry wasn't asking for a crown he never had. But he had believed, naively perhaps, that the legacy of Wales was something that connected them. That even if the roads had diverged, the memory of their mother, and the bond it created, would keep some bridges unburned. As the line disconnected, and Harry stood beneath California's starry night, the hurt crystallized into something else: confusion, sorrow, and a bitter sense of finality. He didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, his mind spiraled, grappling not with the announcement, but with everything that had led to it. The betrayal didn't begin tonight. It began long before, quietly, subtly, a fracture that had grown with time. As Harry sits stunned beneath California's night sky, his thoughts spiral into the past where the seeds of this royal divide were sown. Before the rift, before the interviews and icy stares, there were two boys bonded by grief and destined to lead together. So what happened? What twisted their unbreakable bond into one of royal rivalry and silent resentment? In the days following Diana's death, Kensington Palace was cloaked in an unnatural stillness. But within its walls, two young boys clung to one another like anchors in a storm. Harry and William were not princes then. They were simply sons lost, broken, confused. In the privacy of a candlelit corridor, far from the public eye, they had whispered a vow: "We'll protect each other, no matter what." That promise, forged in pain, had felt eternal. But in the years that followed, time and power would slowly unravel it, thread by painful thread. William, as the heir, was wrapped in protocols and duty, molded gently but firmly into the shape of a future king. Harry, the beloved spare, was told he had freedom, but it came with invisible chains. There were dinners he wasn't invited to, briefings he never received, and when decisions were made about the monarchy's direction, his voice was absent. That silence echoed louder than any rejection. It wasn't one moment that changed everything, it was the weight of 1,000 small ones. William at centre stage during official tours while Harry was ushered to the side. William receiving top advisors while Harry struggled to keep his initiatives funded. Slowly, the air between them thickened. The roles became rigid. One groomed, one ghosted. And as the palace machine moved forward, there was an eerie precision to its design. It lifted William like a symbol, while Harry remained the afterthought. Public appearances began to feel like performances, not brotherhood. At first, Harry tried to convince himself it was just the way things worked. But the moment came, subtle yet unforgettable, when he realized William had made a major decision involving royal charitable restructuring without even informing him. That day, Harry didn't feel like a prince. He felt like a bystander to his own bloodline. The emotional distancing grew sharper. Behind palace walls, a quiet narrative began to unfold. William was the future, Harry the unpredictable variable. The media played its part, feeding the divide with headlines and speculation, but the real story was written in private gestures and closed doors. Every missed call, every delayed reply, every look exchanged without words. They had started as equals in loss, but now they were rivals in legacy. It wasn't malice, it was design. The monarchy was never built for balance, it was built for succession, and William Conchu, sly or not, had stepped into the throne's shadow and let it darken the bond they once swore to protect. But the final fracture wasn't in the past. It came at a hidden council meeting few even knew had taken place, behind gilded doors and guarded by centuries of silence. William sat with key royal advisors, and what he said next would send shockwaves across royal bloodlines. Only George shall bear the title Prince of Wales when the time comes. And Harry? Not even mentioned. The meeting was not public. It was not formalized through traditional channels. It was deliberately off the record, held under the guise of a wellness briefing, while King Charles quietly recovered from a brief health episode that had left the palace momentarily rudderless. But in that vacuum, something decisive happened. A rare gathering was summoned within the inner sanctum. Princess Anne, ever the unwavering compass of duty, a selection of senior advisors with decades of institutional memory, and William, who entered not as a son but as an heir ready to act. Those in the room sensed a shift before a word was spoken. William's demeanor was not uncertain. He had come with intent. Without preamble, he laid it on the table. The future must be unambiguous, he declared. There will be no divided perception, no shared titles. When the time arrives, George alone will be recognized as Prince of Wales. There will be no reassignments. This is how it must be. His words were measured but final. There was no room for negotiation. The room for a moment froze. One aide coughed, another shifted in his chair, unsure if what they heard required immediate endorsement or cautious pause. Princess Anne remained stoic, but her glance was sharp, perhaps troubled. A few nodded in agreement, recognizing the clarity of such a move, especially in a monarchy desperate for stability and certainty. Others hesitated. Understand. The personal cost. It wasn't just a title. It was a message, broadcast quietly yet unmistakably. Harry was no longer in the line of royal continuity. The implications were legally murky. Traditionally, the Prince of Wales title is granted by the reigning monarch, not automatically inherited. But William's move wasn't about tradition. It was about narrative. Control the perception and you control the legacy. The suggestion was not to wait for Charles, nor to consult him directly, not while he rested. This, William insisted, was future-proofing. There would be no confusion over roles, no public debate over the rightful bearer. George's path would be carved now, sharp, clear, unshared. The advisors listened, some calculating the political fallout, others too caught in the weight of history to resist. But among them sat one figure whose loyalty to the institution was now conflicted, a private secretary long in service, quietly stunned by the decision, slipped away that evening and made a single call, not to the press, but to someone outside the royal web. Someone still connected to Harry. The message didn't take long to travel. It was discreetly passed to a trusted contact in California, someone who once served as a go-between before the Sussex departure. And just like that, before an official decree could ever be drafted, the truth reached Harry not in a sealed envelope or dignified missive, but through a whisper that echoed louder than any press release ever could. Word travelled fast, but it was the emotional aftermath, not the politics, that lit the fire within Harry. Alone in a Montecito study, Harry stood motionless, gripping an old photograph of him and William as boys. "Does he even see me anymore?" he whispered to Meghan. The pain wasn't just in the title, it was in the silence of a brother who had once sworn to never leave him behind. For a few hours after learning of the council's secret decision, Harry said nothing. He barely moved. He wandered through their home like a man suspended between memory and disbelief, the kind of silence that isn't peace but pressure. At first, he refused to believe it. This had to be a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation, something they could clear up with a single call. But no call came. And the more he waited, the more the silence confirmed the truth. It wasn't just real, it was intentional. What struck Harry wasn't the decision itself, but that his name hadn't even been spoken. Not as an alternative, not even in passing. William had erased him from the future of the monarchy like he'd never existed. And that's when the storm came. Not a loud, raging explosion, but a slow, suffocating wave. Memories, words, images. Diana telling them, "Stay united. You'll only survive if you stand together." Her voice rang in his mind like a prophecy broken. How could a bond born from such pain turn into this quiet cruelty? He looked again at the photo, two young boys in school uniforms, arms around each other, forced to smile through trauma. Now one of them had decided the other didn't even deserve a place in the kingdom they were both born to. Meghan found him still gripping the picture, and though she tried to be gentle, her voice was edged with realism. "You knew this day might come," she said. "But not like this," he replied. "Not like I never mattered." In a drawer tucked under papers long forgotten, he found something else. A letter creased, water-stained, half-torn at the edges. A letter he had once written to William after a public feud, apologizing, begging for understanding, promising he never wanted to be his enemy. He had never sent it. But now, holding it, he realized it wouldn't have changed anything. The decision had been made long before today. It had been unfolding in private rooms, through utter exclusions, behind carefully crafted speeches. He remembered a time when William had shielded him, literally stepped in front of a photographer who was hounding Harry during a skiing trip. That was the brother he remembered. The one who once said, "We protect each other, always." That vow had clearly expired. The weight of being invisible in his own family's story bore down harder than ever. This wasn't about thrones or crowns or ancient titles. This was about being erased by the only person who once stood beside him through the darkest hour of their shared life. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, clinical, calculated. And that made it more painful than anything shouted across a tabloid headline. But before Harry could grieve fully, the palace made a public move that changed everything. A tweet. A photo. A single phrase, the title of Wales shall continue with Prince George. No mention of Harry. No mention of the past. The press went into frenzy. The world gasped. And Harry, he shattered. There was no press conference. No royal statement read on velvet cushions. Just a digital post sent from the official palace account at precisely 9 a.m. London time. It was clean, rehearsed, deliberate. An image of King Charles, Prince William, and young Prince George standing shoulder to shoulder on the palace balcony, framed by history and hierarchy. Below it, the caption that detonated through generations of royal blood, the title of Wales shall continue with Prince George. 16 words that carried centuries of weight and an unmistakable absence. Harry's name was nowhere to be found. Not a footnote, not a reference, not even an acknowledgement of what had been cast aside. Within minutes, the media roared to life. Networks broke from scheduled programming. Analysts scrambled to interpret what this meant, not just for George, but for the monarchy's lineage and public perception. Commentators noted the intentional phrasing, how it subtly signaled continuity without ever using the word succession, how it positioned George as both symbol and future, while conveniently avoiding the uncomfortable truth of a brother's exclusion. News tickers blazed with words like finality, betrayal, and division. Headlines ran wild. Royal watchers were no longer just observers, they were soldiers in an information war. In Montecito, Meghan's PR team was blindsided. No advance warning, no advisory note, not even the courtesy of a back-channel tip-off. Within hours, phones rang non-stop. Reporters demanded comment. Questions came like rapid fire. Did Harry know? Was this retaliation? Will there be a response? The Sussex camp went into lockdown, scrambling for composure. Meghan, ever the strategist, pushed for restraint. But Harry, already drowning in private grief, refused to be paraded in the press like a wounded symbol. The statement would come, he said, but not now. Not while the pain was still raw. Online, the storm only grew. Team Harry and Team William trended worldwide as social media turned the brothers' fracture into a global spectacle. Loyalists to Harry decried the erasure, calling it petty, even cruel. Defenders of William praised his clarity and strength. Every comment thread became a battlefield, every share a weapon. And at the center of it all, Harry remained quiet. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he feared that if he spoke now, he wouldn't be able to stop. The silence, once inflicted on him, had now become his only shield. Meanwhile, inside Buckingham Palace, King Charles remained conspicuously still. There was no follow-up clarification, no attempt to soothe public interpretation. Behind closed doors, he entertained diplomats, smiled through ceremonial obligations, but made no effort to intervene in the chow. His lineage had unleashed. Perhaps he believed time would blunt the fallout, or perhaps, buried beneath decades of royal conditioning, he simply didn't know how to reach out anymore. But behind the cameras, within the stone walls of Windsor, another figure was preparing to speak, one who had held back for too long. She's known as the Iron Royal, never emotional, always loyal. But even Princess Anne had her limits. And when she finally spoke about Harry's exclusion, her words cut deeper than anyone expected. This isn't what Diana would have wanted. For decades, Princess Anne had stood as the monarchy's unwavering pillar, disciplined, stoic, unsentimental. She didn't meddle, didn't lecture, didn't falter. If there was ever a royal designed to weather storms, it was her. But even steel bends when the pressure becomes unbearable. And when the news broke that William had formally cast aside his own brother in shaping the next line of succession, Anne didn't simply remain seated in silence. She requested a private audience. Not with the king, with William. And when the door closed behind them, Anne, the aunt who rarely raised her voice, spoke not as a senior royal, but as someone who remembered the grief of two orphaned boys in black suits walking behind their mother's coffin. "You've created a ghost, not a future," she told him. "And whether you see it or not, this will haunt you." She hadn't meant to revisit the past, but the memory of her conversations with Diana in those final years came rushing back with painful clarity. Diana had often confided in Anne brief, guarded confessions about the fear that her sons would one day be turned into political tools. She had hoped quietly that Anne would watch over them, not to intervene but to remind them of who they were beneath the weight of their roles. And now Anne felt the obligation to honor that hope. She admitted, even herself, that she had often been skeptical of Harry's choices, his outbursts, his exit. But to erase him completely? That was not royal firmness. That was familial erasure. And for Anne, that crossed a line. William's reaction was swift, cold, almost rehearsed. "The monarchy must be decisive," he replied. "Uncertainty is the real threat." He didn't flinch, didn't blink. But Anne saw something behind the bravado, something rigid, unmovable, and deeply troubled. There was no space for debate. The course was set. Yet Anne wasn't finished. She left the meeting and made a rare private call to her brother, the king. She didn't issue demands. She didn't plead. But she made her position clear. Do not let this be the legacy you leave them. Do not let silence replace your sons. Charles listened, or at least he seemed to, but there was something hollow in his tone, something distant, as if he was standing at a precipice. he had no strength to climb down from. The Charles Anne once relied upon for quiet wisdom now seemed fractured, torn between the demands of a kingdom and the collapse of a family. But Charles was no longer the unifying figure he once tried to be. His own inner war was silently raging. As King Charles retreated into the private library at Balmoral, he stared at a family portrait with trembling hands. 2 sons, 1 future. The truth was, he knew he had allowed this divide, and now he would have to live with the consequences of his silence. The image before him wasn't just a picture, it was a memory frozen in time, a reminder of what once was, and of everything now fractured. Harry and William standing beside him, boys still learning to smile again after their mother's death. Diana's words echoed like ghosts through the oak-panelled walls. Don't let them turn against each other. And yet, here he was. Not just a father, not just a king, but a man who had failed to hold his family together in the one moment it mattered most. Charles had always walked a thin line between his private emotions and public obligations. Now, that line had collapsed beneath the weight of regret. The letters from Harry lay untouched on his desk, days old, words unread. The envelopes were unsealed but unopened, an act of denial so subtle yet so telling. In them, Harry had tried to reach him, not with accusations but with questions. Why now? Why this way? Was there no place left for his children in the legacy their grandmother once built with love and sorrow? Charles had read the first line of one note and put it aside, not out of malice but fear. He didn't know how to respond. He no longer recognized the language of emotion, only the dialect of duty. He remembered the hushed talks with William, late-night strategy sessions masked as father-son chats. They spoke of modernizing the monarchy, of simplifying the structure, of clarifying roles. But never, not once, had Charles imagined that modernization would mean erasing Harry altogether. William had framed the decision as clarity, strength, the inevitable shift toward a monarchy that could survive in the modern world. Charles, weakened by illness and weary from years of compromise, had nodded in half-hearted agreement, but inside, something ached. He had not envisioned a future where only one son stood beneath the crown's shadow while the other was left outside the gates. And yet, he had said nothing. When the palace sent the tweet, when the photo was released, when the world erupted in shock, Charles remained quiet. Some would call it diplomacy, others cowardice. But Charles knew it was neither, it was paralysis. He had hoped time would offer a solution, but time, it seemed, had become a weapon. Camilla's counsel had been careful, measured. She hadn't pushed, but she hadn't stopped it either. Her loyalty, as always, was to Charles's peace, and in the end, peace meant avoiding conflict, even when conflict was screaming for attention. He had missed the moment, the point when he could have stepped in, called it back, rebalanced the scales. Now the scales had tipped, and the silence he thought would shield the crown had become a chasm separating his sons. But the pain wouldn't stay contained much longer. While the monarchy turned its face to the future, Harry made one final attempt to reclaim his place, not for himself, but for his children. He wasn't fighting for a crown, he was fighting for identity. Harry's message to William wasn't public, but it was powerful. If not me, then at least don't erase Archie. The response he received would leave him colder than ever before. Harry had long since stopped asking for a place at the table. He had made peace with the fact that he would not wear ceremonial robes again, nor stand beside his brother on that storied palace balcony. But what he could not accept, what turned his sorrow into a deeper, more urgent desperation, was the looming reality that his children might be written out of history entirely. And so he wrote. Not a public essay, not a televised appeal, but a letter personal, raw, pleading. Addressed to William, from brother to brother. In it, Harry made no claims. He offered no accusations. He simply asked that Archie not be punished for choices he never made. That lineage not be weaponized to sever blood ties. That whatever bitterness remained between them, it not extend to the next generation. He referenced Diana not as a symbol, but as a mother. A woman who once said, "The value of a person is not in their rank, but in their heart." Harry reminded William of how she would sit with them, hold their hands and say they were equals. Always. He asked quietly if those words had ever truly left him. Meghan, reading the draft before he sent it, sat still for a long time. "I thought they'd at least care about the children," she whispered. Her disappointment wasn't loud, it was heavier than rage. She had always known the institution could be cold, but this she hadn't expected. The reply came swiftly, a folded sheet. No greeting, no warmth. Just 4 words: "The decision stands." W. It wasn't a message. It was a wall, a final, unscalable wall between past and present, between blood and legacy. Harry didn't cry. He didn't scream. He simply stared at the paper as if trying to see the brother who used to defend him from bullies and press cameras. But that brother was gone, replaced by a man who no longer saw family, only function. That night, as the children slept, Harry opened a blank document on his laptop and typed a title: Volume 2. He didn't yet know if it would be a memoir or a manifesto, but he knew it would speak of lineage, exile, and the brutal clarity of being silenced in plain sight. And then came a question, from a voice too innocent to carry such weight. George Young, bright-eyed, had asked his father at dinner why Uncle Harry wasn't in the photo. The photo, the one that broke the world in 16 words. William had answered curtly, perhaps too curtly, and George had gone quiet. But the damage was done. Even the next generation had begun to feel the fracture, however faint, and somewhere inside Windsor, the tremor was beginning to echo. But just when all hope seemed lost, an unexpected voice emerged from the shadows, bringing both closure and a final twist. In a never-before-heard recording stored in Kensington's private archives, Diana's voice echoed into the present. "Let neither of my ons carry titles if it means they lose each other." Her words now ignite a new fire. What happens next may reshape the royal legacy forever. It wasn't meant to be found. For decades, the recording had been sealed away, buried deep within a vault of personal memorabilia, marked only with a handwritten label, for reflection, not release. But in the aftermath of the Wales title crisis, as whispers tore through the palace halls and the media's frenzy refused to die down, one former royal archivist, long since retired but haunted by what he'd witnessed, decided it was time. The clip was brief, less than a minute, but its impact was seismic. In a hushed, trembling tone, Diana spoke candidly, her words laced with pain and impossible clarity. "If the weight of titles ever costs them their brotherhood, I would rather they have none at all. Let neither of my sons carry titles if it means they lose each other." It wasn't a warning, it was prophecy. The leak was discreet, passed to a trusted royal biographer who, after authenticating it through palace sources, published a transcription online. Within hours, the internet was ablaze. Headlines screamed with disbelief, while comment sections mourned the ache of a mother long gone, who had seen the storm before it arrived. For Harry, the moment was devastating. He didn't need to hear it to know it was real. But when he did, he sat in silence, tears falling not from surprise but from recognition. She knew, he whispered to Meghan. She saw all of this coming. And still, no one listened. Across the Atlantic, in the heart of London, William was on royal duty when the quote broke. Cameras caught the instant the words reached his ear, a flicker of stillness, a momentary pause. He adjusted his posture and carried on, but those closest to him noticed. For the first time in weeks, the certainty in his eyes faltered. The line between strength and stubbornness had become impossible to ignore. He wasn't just carrying forward a legacy, he was walking away from a bond. And now, the voice of the one woman who had given both brothers their place in this world was asking quietly but powerfully, was it worth it? In the hours that followed, discussions erupted behind palace walls. Some insisted the recording changed nothing. Others weren't so sure. For the first time there was talk not of succession, but of reconciliation. Yet no one moved. No calls were made. No statements released. The silence remained, but now it was filled with echoes. Echoes of what could have been. Echoes of what still might be. As the world watches this royal reckoning unfold, one thing is clear. The battle for titles is no longer about crowns, but hearts, legacies, and the soul of a family. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.